There's a rumor that the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, touched the Queen of England's knee. It was easy to believe since he was a bit of a rock star back in the USSR. Now, obviously, only the Queen knows what really happened.
What was he like?
Russian. He didn't speak English.
He didn't speak English.
No, he was fascinating.
But when it comes to real, lesser-known facts about the first man in space, we've got your back. Yuri Gagarin's life has become a collection of myths and legends, and it's easy to get lost. Even his own autobiography and books written by his relatives were heavily edited by Soviet censors. You see, Yuri Gagarin was not only a domestic brand, but also an international icon. Everything in his life had to be perfect and represent an idealized symbol of the Soviet man, to the point of rewriting his life. So, for example, very little is known about how his family lived under German occupation. Gagarin was 7 when their village was occupied. German soldiers got to his native village of Klushino, a 3-hour drive from Moscow, in 1941. The Germans forced the Gagarins out of their home, and the family lived in a mud hut for 2 years before the Soviet army freed the village. Nazis made able prisoners work in German factories or sent them to labor camps. Yuri's older brother and sister were captured and sent away to Germany. And this fact was a big issue back then, and Gagarin himself almost never mentioned it. Many captives found no relief upon returning home. The Soviet regime sometimes branded them as traitors, and some were even sent to the Gulag, which marked them for life. When Gagarin's older sister Zoya returned from Nazi captivity, she couldn't find a job. That's how she and her brother found themselves with a fabricated past. According to their new biography, Zoya and Valentin weren't freed, they escaped. Without this spin, Gagarin's career would have been tarnished or even potentially destroyed. Or maybe he'd get away using his charm. They say even high Soviet authorities couldn't resist it. Chief designer of Soviet space race rockets, Sergei Korolev, was charmed by him. Soviet leaders, Khrushchev and Brezhnev, were charmed by him. And women were charmed by him. They loved him. But most importantly, Soviet people were charmed by him. For them, Yuri was their guy next door, the guy they went to school with. Coming from a humble, working-class background, thanks to the Soviet system, he was completely self-made, first becoming a pilot and then a cosmonaut. But he stayed true to his low-key image, even attended an awards ceremony with his suspenders undone. He is the embodiment of a Soviet dream come true. Who wouldn't love him? His bullies didn't. In fact, they hated him so much they beat him up. While serving in the army and studying to be a pilot, Yuri was an assistant to the training platoon commander, and he demanded strict observance of the army regulations from everyone. He was called a suck-up for this, and 3 of his service members decided to teach him a lesson. The 3 young men beat him up so badly, Gagarin only regained his consciousness in hospital. The military tribunal sentenced each of the 3 to 2 to 3 years of penalty labor. By the way, this obsession of polishing over reality even affected the flight. Almost everything related to Gagarin's landing was misinformation and was classified information for a very long time. For example, the Soviet and Western media wrote that when Yuri landed, he was inside the lander, when in fact he ejected from the cockpit and landed separately. Only 10 years later, rumors started spreading that Gagarin had ejected due to an emergency, and the authorities told the public the whole truth only in the second half of the 1980s, on the eve of the 25th anniversary of Gagarin's flight. This was done because of a technicality. The International Aviation Federation, and mind you, the space one wasn't yet formed, could mark Gagarin's flight as unsuccessful because he wasn't in the cockpit when it landed. Also, when entering the atmosphere due to technical problems, the descent didn't quite follow the specified trajectory. The ship with the cosmonaut was expected in the Samara region, and they landed in the Saratov region. However, the media reported the landing as planned. and it was a difficult flight for Gagarin. In the recording, he describes his state as satisfactory, but the change in gravitation hit him harder than that. All of his landing photos were heavily retouched. I know this might look like we're trying to defame Yuri Gagarin, but that's not our intention. The Soviets loved him, and so do we. There are cities in his name, paintings, songs. He is a hero for having the strength and audacity to become the very first man to go into space where no one has gone before. And he is also so gorgeous. Just look at that smile. No matter where our space exploration ends up, be it Mars or Venus or an entire Starfleet universe, all of this started with him. And every astronaut, cosmonaut, space pirate and captain will remember the cold day of April 12th and the name Yuri Gagarin. There's a legend that Gagarin always carried spare buttons with him during his world tour. That was because his fans not only tried to touch him and hug him and kiss him, but also to grab something as a keepsake, tearing off button after button from his uniform.